Taehyun Park stood frozen at the entrance of Galactic Academy, clutching his small suitcase tightly. His heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the massive doors sliding open. Through them, he could see dozens of alien species from across the galaxy moving about the Grand Hall. Some floated, some crawled, others walked on multiple legs. Taehyun took a deep breath and stepped forward, becoming the first human to ever cross this threshold. The artificial gravity felt slightly off, just enough to make his movements awkward. His environmental suit beeped softly, confirming the air was safe to breathe but warning of higher oxygen levels than Earth standard. Taehyun carefully removed his helmet, his dark hair falling across his forehead as he took his first breath of Academy air. Subject 2-4-7-9, designated human, please proceed to orientation, announced an automated voice from somewhere above. Taehyun winced at being called a number but followed the holographic arrow that appeared before him. The orientation room was filled with new students of various species. As Taehyun entered, conversations stopped. Eyes, stalks, and sensory organs all turned toward him. He found an empty seat near the back and sat down, trying to ignore the stares. "Is that really a human?" whispered a small green creature to Taehyun's left. "They look so soft." Before Taehyun could respond, a tall blue-scaled being with ridge-lined forehead that pulsed with light sat directly in front of him, purposely blocking his view. "You're in the wrong place," the blue alien said without turning around. "This academy is for advanced species." Taehyun stayed quiet. He had been warned about this. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community, often viewed as primitive despite their rapid technological advancements. He had worked too hard to earn this spot to be chased away on his first day. The orientation proceeded with a holographic instructor explaining academy protocols, emergency procedures, and course selections. When it ended, Taehyun quickly collected his schedule and map, hoping to reach his quarters without incident. As he navigated the crowded hallway, he noticed a group of the blue-scale aliens following him. Their leader, taller than the others, moved with an air of superiority. "Hey, Earth creature," the leader called out. "I am Dovok of the Craxian High Council family. You should know who rules this academy." Taehyun turned slowly. "I'm Taehyun Park. I'm just here to learn, like everyone else." Dovok laughed, his throat sacs expanding. "Humans don't learn. They steal technology and pretend to understand it. How many centuries did it take you to discover space travel? 5? 6? The other Craxians laughed, their bioluminescent patterns flickering in amusement. "Excuse me," Taehyun said quietly, trying to move past them. A long blue arm shot out, blocking his path. "Your environmental suit is outdated by galactic standards." "Did you build it yourself from scraps?" Dovok mocked. Taehyun felt his face grow hot but remembered his training. Diplomacy first. "It works well enough. Now if you'll excuse me." "It won't work well if something happens to it," Dovok said, his claw-like fingers reaching for Taehyun's helmet. "Please don't touch my equipment," Taehyun said firmly, pulling away. A small silver-skinned alien suddenly appeared beside them. "Professor Zolt is coming," she warned. The Craxians immediately backed away. "This isn't over, human," Dovok hissed before they disappeared into the crowd. "Thank you," Taehyun said to the silver alien. "I'm Nari," she replied, her large eyes blinking rapidly. "You should be careful around Craxians. They believe they're superior to everyone, especially new species." By lunchtime, Taehyun had attracted more unwanted attention. The dining hall had various sections adapted for different biological needs. He struggled to understand the food dispensing system, eventually receiving something that resembled blue oatmeal. Finding an empty table, he sat down only to discover the anti-gravity seating was calibrated incorrectly. He hovered awkwardly above his chair, trying to reach his food while floating several inches too high. Laughter erupted around him. Dovok and his friends had sabotaged his seat settings. "Look at the primitive trying to function," Dovok called out loudly. "I heard humans still need to sleep every day and can't even regulate their body temperature." The cafeteria grew quiet as more students turned to watch. Taehyun felt his ears burning with embarrassment, but he calmly reached under the table and found the gravity control. With a quick adjustment, he settled properly into his seat and began eating as if nothing had happened. He noticed Nari watching him from across the room, a look of respect in her eyes. Perhaps he could find allies here after all. As Taehyun walked to his afternoon class in xenobiology, a swift tentacle shot out from a side corridor, tripping him. His tablet scattered across the floor as his notes went flying. More laughter followed. "Oops," Dovok said, towering over him. "Looks like humans haven't even mastered basic locomotion." Taehyun silently gathered his belongings, his jaw tight. He had known this wouldn't be easy, but he hadn't expected the challenges to start so soon. As he picked up his last datapad, he made a quiet promise to himself: by the end of this term, everyone at Galactic Academy would learn exactly why humans were not to be underestimated. Taehyun spent his first week at Galactic Academy learning far more than just his assigned classes. Each night, he stayed awake studying Craxian biology and culture on his tablet. He learned that their bioluminescent patterns revealed their emotions, that their third heart was a vulnerable point, and that they valued social standing above all else. "Know your opponent," he whispered to himself, scrolling through files about Craxian pressure points. His father, a military strategist back on Earth, had taught him this principle. He wasn't planning to fight, but knowledge was its own form of protection. During physical adaptation class, the students were paired for anti-gravity exercises. No one volunteered to work with Taehyun until the instructor forced Nari, the small silver-skinned alien who had helped him earlier, to be his partner. "I'm sorry about the others," Nari said quietly as they practiced movement techniques. "They fear what they don't understand." "It's okay," Taehyun replied, easily floating through a complicated maneuver that the others struggled with. "Humans are used to adapting." Nari's eyes widened. "How did you do that so easily? Most species take weeks to master that sequence." Taehyun smiled. "I studied basic physics and practiced in my quarters. It's just applied mathematics." Word spread quickly that the human was excelling in his classes. Taehyun noticed some students watching him with curiosity rather than disdain now. But Dovok and his Craxian friends only intensified their harassment. During lunch one day, Dovok accidentally spilled his tray of acidic food onto Taehyun's uniform. The human jumped back quickly, avoiding serious burns but ruining his only academy outfit. "Clumsy me," Dovok smirked, his forehead ridges flashing bright patterns of satisfaction. Taehyun said nothing. He simply cleaned himself as best he could and continued eating. His apparent calmness only seemed to anger Dovok more. Later that week, the class had their first 0G flight exam. Each student would navigate a small personal craft through an obstacle course. Taehyun noticed Dovok speaking with one of the maintenance workers near his assigned vessel but thought nothing of it. When Taehyun's turn came, he strapped himself into the pilot seat. Everything seemed normal as he launched into the course. Then suddenly, his navigation system flickered and died. The craft began spinning wildly. "Park has lost control," the instructor shouted over the comm. The other students watched, expecting disaster. Dovok's face showed clear anticipation of the human's failure. But Taehyun didn't panic. Growing up, he had spent hundreds of hours in his father's old flight simulator. When the system failed, he switched to manual controls, using the stars and fixed points in the course as references. His hands moved steadily over the emergency backup systems. The audience fell silent as they watched him regain control and complete the course. When the vessel landed, the instructor checked the logs. "Navigation failure at Mark 247, she announced, her four eyes blinking in surprise. "Yet you completed with the third highest score in class history. How?" Taehyun stepped out of the craft, his eyes locking with Dovok's across the hangar. "Humans have been improvising since we first picked up sticks and stones," he said calmly. "It's how we survived." The instructor examined the navigation system more closely. "This was tampered with," she declared. The class murmured, and Dovok's forehead ridges pulsed with nervous patterns. After class, Nari caught up with Taehyun in the hallway. "That was amazing," she said. "No one has ever made Dovok look so foolish before." I'm not trying to embarrass anyone, Taehyun replied. I just want to complete my studies here. Well, you've made an impression. Look. Nari pointed to a group of students from various species who nodded respectfully as Taehyun passed. That evening, Taehyun found Nari waiting outside his quarters. Her silver skin shimmered with anxiety. Be careful, she whispered. I overheard Dovok planning something. He's furious that you showed him up. Thank you for warning me, Taehyun said. But why are you helping me? Nari's skin rippled with emotion. My species can sense feelings. Most here fear or dislike humans because that's what they've been taught. But you. She paused, you don't hate Dovok despite everything. You just want to belong. Taehyun nodded. Nari was right. He wasn't there to fight wars or prove human superiority. He was there as a bridge between worlds. The next day in comparative biology, the professor asked for volunteers to demonstrate their species' unique adaptations. When no one else moved, Taehyun raised his hand. He walked to the front of the class and removed his protective gloves. Humans appear weak, he began, but we have adaptations you might not recognize. He proceeded to demonstrate human endurance by holding a static position for an impossibly long time by Craxian standards. He explained how human hands could perform fine manipulations that many species found impossible. He showed how humans could regulate their breathing, temporarily resist pain, and focus intensely on tasks. When he finished, the classroom was silent. Then one student asked a question. Then another. For the first time, they were curious rather than contemptuous. Dovok watched from the back, his ridges pulsing with dark patterns of frustration. The human wasn't breaking, wasn't fighting back in ways he understood. He was winning without conflict, and that was somehow worse. That night, Dovok gathered his closest friends. The human has embarrassed me for the last time, he hissed. Tomorrow, we'll show him exactly where he stands in the galactic order. Taehyun walked through the academy corridors, checking his tablet for the day's schedule. 3 weeks had passed since he arrived, and he was starting to feel more comfortable. Some students even nodded to him now as he passed. His stellar performance in classes had earned him a small measure of respect. As he rounded a corner, he found Nari waiting nervously, her silver skin rippling with anxiety. I found something interesting in Sector 7, she said quietly. An old Earth artifact in one of the storage rooms. I thought you might want to see it. Taehyun raised an eyebrow. Sector 7? I thought that area was restricted to senior students. It is, but I have access because of my work-study program, Nari explained. Meet me there during the midday break. Use access corridor B12 to avoid the monitors. Taehyun was curious about what Earth item could possibly be stored at the academy. Perhaps something from the first contact days? He had time before his next class, so he decided to check it out. Following Nari's directions, he found the rarely used corridor that led to Sector 7. The lights here were dimmer, and the air felt different, colder and stale. Taehyun's environmental suit sensors beeped softly, warning of atmospheric changes, but nothing dangerous. When he reached the designated storage room, the door was already open. He stepped inside cautiously. Nari, he called. The door slid shut behind him with a heavy thud. Lights suddenly blazed on, revealing not Nari, but Dovok and 5 other Craxians. No empathic here, human, Dovok said, his ridge patterns pulsing with malicious delight. You're so predictable. Did you really think she would meet you in a restricted area? Taehyun realized he'd been tricked. Where's Nari? What did you do to her? Nothing, one of the other Craxians said. We simply cloned her communication signature. A basic trick for anyone with proper technology. Dovok stepped forward. You've been making us look bad, human. Showing off in classes, turning others against us. It's time you learned your place in the galactic order. Taehyun's eyes darted around the room, looking for exits. This is stupid, Dovok. We're all students here. What are you trying to prove? That humans don't belong among advanced species, Dovok sneered. After today, you'll either leave voluntarily or be carried out. Without warning, the lights suddenly cut out. Emergency sirens wailed as red warning lights began flashing throughout the room. A computerized voice blared overhead. Warning, radiation containment breach detected. Hazardous exposure imminent. All personnel evacuate immediately. Panic erupted among the Craxians. What did you do? One shouted at Dovok. Just what we planned, Dovok replied calmly. This room contains old radiation samples. I simply disabled the containment field temporarily. The levels are uncomfortable for us, but lethal to a human. We'll be fine, he won't. Taehyun's environmental suit alarm shrieked, confirming dangerous radiation levels. The Craxians watched him, expecting him to collapse or panic. Instead, Taehyun calmly pressed several buttons on his wrist control, adjusting his suit settings. Is this your big plan? Radiation exposure? Dovok's confidence wavered. Those levels would kill any human instantly. Maybe most humans, Taehyun agreed. But I grew up in a remediation zone. After the resource wars, parts of Earth had radiation levels much higher than this. My family has lived in those zones for 3 generations. We adapted. As if to prove his point, Taehyun walked calmly toward the main control panel. The radiation warning continued to blare, but he showed no signs of distress. What are you doing? Dovok demanded. Fixing your mess, Taehyun replied. Unless you want to explain to the Academy administration why you deliberately caused a radiation breach. Before he could reach the panel, the door burst open. A security team in protective gear rushed in, followed by several instructors. What's happening here? Demanded the security chief, a tall insectoid being. One of the younger Craxians broke immediately. Dovok did it. He said we were just going to scare the human. He didn't tell us about the radiation. In the confusion, Taehyun noticed Dovok trying to slip away. Without thinking, he lunged forward just as a ceiling panel loosened by the security team's entrance crashed down. Taehyun pushed Dovok out of the way but couldn't completely avoid the falling debris himself. A sharp metal edge sliced into his arm, drawing bright red blood. The room fell silent as everyone stared at the human blood dripping onto the floor. Even through their protective gear, the security team moved back slightly. You saved me, Dovok said, his voice barely audible. After what I tried to do. Taehyun winced as he applied pressure to his wound. That's what humans do. We protect others, even those who don't like us. The security chief approached carefully. Both of you need medical attention. This area is still dangerous. As they were escorted out, the medical officer arriving on scene checked Taehyun's radiation exposure levels. Impossible, she gasped. Those readings should have killed you instantly. Earth's background radiation and our history of nuclear testing gave us quite the resistance, Taehyun explained calmly. Now, shall we get Dovok to medical? I think he's in shock. The gathered aliens watched with new eyes as the supposedly fragile human helped his wounded bully toward the medical bay, seemingly unconcerned about his own injury or the radiation that should have killed him. Word spread quickly through the academy, humans weren't just clever, they were much tougher than anyone had realized. Taehyun sat outside the administration office, waiting for the disciplinary committee to finish their discussion. The radiation incident had caused a major stir throughout the academy. Despite clear evidence of sabotage, the committee seemed reluctant to punish Dovok severely. His family connections to the Craxian High Council were proving valuable. Nari paced nervously beside him, her silver skin flickering with worry patterns. It's not fair, she whispered. He could have killed you. Politics rarely cares about fairness, Taehyun replied, flexing his freshly healed arm. The medical bay had repaired his wound within hours, but the memory remained fresh. The door slid open, and the committee members filed out. The head administrator, a tall being with 4 arms and translucent skin, addressed Taehyun directly. Student Park, while we acknowledge the dangerous nature of the incident, we find insufficient evidence to expel Student Dovok. He will be placed on probation and restricted from certain academy facilities for 1 term. Taehyun nodded politely, though he felt the punishment was inadequate. As Dovok exited the office, his ridge patterns showed not shame but smug satisfaction. Their eyes met briefly before Dovok walked away, surrounded by his friends. He feels untouchable now, Nari said. This will only make things worse. Taehyun watched the Craxians retreating form thoughtfully. Then perhaps it's time for a different approach. The following day, notices appeared throughout the academy announcing the annual interspecies tournament. Every year, students competed in various challenges designed to showcase the natural abilities of different species. You should enter, Nari suggested as they studied together in the library. Show everyone what humans can really do. Taehyun considered this. What events are there? Strength trials, speed runs, mental challenges, endurance tests, she listed. Each designed to be fair across species. The gravity and atmosphere adapt to each competitor's home conditions. Taehyun smiled slowly. I think I will enter. But I need your help with something first. Over the next 2 weeks, Taehyun spent every free moment training. But more importantly, he gathered a small group of students who had also suffered under Dovok's bullying. Nari brought her roommate, a plant-based being named Tulo who could photosynthesize energy. A mechanical student called Rin joined them, along with others from 6 different species. Together, they formed a team for the tournament's cooperative challenge, a multi-stage event requiring diverse skills. When the day of the tournament arrived, the academy's main arena was packed with spectators. Taehyun watched as various species demonstrated their natural abilities, Craxians lifting enormous weights, gas-based entities racing through obstacle courses, crystal beings solving complex equations in seconds. Dovok performed impressively in the strength category, setting a new record. His smug glance toward Taehyun conveyed his message clearly: no human could match this. When Taehyun's turn came for the endurance challenge, the judges explained the rules. You must maintain position while we gradually increase gravity. The last competitor standing wins. As the trial began, the artificial gravity slowly increased. At twice Earth's normal gravity, several competitors dropped out. At 2.5 times, more fell. When it reached 3 times standard gravity, only Taehyun and a dense silicon-based being remained. The audience watched in amazement as Taehyun stood firmly, showing no signs of strain. Having grown up on Earth with relatively high gravity compared to many homeworlds, this challenge played to his natural advantages. How is he still standing? Someone whispered loudly. His bones should be crushing. When the silicon being finally collapsed at 3.5 times gravity, Taehyun was declared the winner. As he walked off the platform, he caught sight of Dovok's shocked expression. The final event was the cooperative challenge. Teams would navigate a series of obstacles requiring different biological abilities to overcome. Taehyun's team faced Dovok's team of all Craxian students in the finals. Remember, Taehyun told his diverse team, we each have different strengths. That's our advantage. The challenge began with a complex maze that changed configuration every 30 seconds. While Dovok's team tried to muscle through barriers, Taehyun's team used Tulo's ability to sense light patterns to predict the changes and Ren's mechanical precision to calculate optimal paths. They pulled ahead, but suddenly alarms blared throughout the academy. The competition immediately halted as emergency announcements echoed. All students to shelter stations. Space debris has breached outer defenses. Shield failure imminent in Sector 3. Panic erupted in the arena. The real emergency protocols that students had only practiced were now being implemented. In the chaos, a structural support near Dovok collapsed. He froze in fear as the heavy beam began falling toward him. Taehyun reacted instantly, diving across the arena and pushing Dovok clear. The beam crashed down where the Craxian had stood seconds before. As emergency crews scrambled to respond to the crisis, Taehyun's training team quickly organized themselves. Nari, use your empathic abilities to locate anyone injured. Tulo, your photoreceptors can see through the smoke, guide the younger students to safety. Ren, your mechanical body can withstand vacuum, check the seal integrity on the emergency doors. While Dovok and his friends stood paralyzed with indecision, Taehyun calmly directed both his team and nearby students. His voice remained steady, his instructions clear and precise. Humans train for crisis, he explained to a frightened first-year student as he helped them into a pressure suit. It's in our history. We've survived countless disasters. This is just one more. When Academy security finally arrived at the arena, they found an orderly evacuation already in progress, with Taehyun's team efficiently managing the situation. As the immediate danger passed, Dovok approached Taehyun, his ridge pattern showing confused emotions. You saved me. Again. Why? Taehyun checked a nearby student's oxygen levels before answering. Because that's the real human advantage, Dovok. Not strength or speed or even intelligence. It's what we do when everything falls apart. The Grand Hall of Galactic Academy had never been so full. Students, faculty, and even visitors from diplomatic vessels packed the massive space. At the center stage stood Taehyun, looking somewhat uncomfortable with all the attention. The emergency from 2 days ago had been contained with minimal damage thanks largely to the organized response of the students. The academy director, a tall being with glowing spots covering their elongated head, raised all 4 hands for silence. The murmuring crowd grew quiet. In recognition of exceptional leadership during crisis conditions, the director announced, voice amplified throughout the hall, we award human student Taehyun Park the Galactic Service Medal. Applause erupted as Taehyun stepped forward to receive the medal. He had never expected this. When he arrived 5 weeks ago, he had simply hoped to survive his first term without major incident. Would you like to say something? The director asked, offering Taehyun the communication orb. Taehyun nodded and took a deep breath. Thank you for this honor, he began, but I didn't act alone. Every student who helped during the crisis deserves recognition. He gestured toward Nari, Tulo, Ren, and the others who had worked with him. We succeeded because we combined our different abilities. No single species could have managed everything needed during that emergency. The director nodded approvingly. A wise observation. Perhaps there is something to learn from our newest galactic members. As the ceremony concluded, students surrounded Taehyun, asking questions about Earth and humans. The same students who had avoided him weeks ago now seemed eager to learn from him. Later that evening, as Taehyun returned to his quarters, he noticed Dovok waiting in the corridor. The Craxian stood alone, his ridge pattern subdued, a sign of serious reflection among his species. Park, Dovok said formally, I must speak with you. Taehyun stopped, curious but cautious. What is it? Dovok seemed to struggle with the words, his pride fighting against what he needed to say. I misjudged your species. Taehyun remained quiet, letting the Craxian continue. How can you be so primitive yet so effective in crisis? Dovok finally asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Your world hasn't even achieved unified government. You have no celestial engineering projects. Your technology is borrowed. Yet when everything fell apart, everyone looked to you. Taehyun considered his answer carefully. This wasn't just about him and Dovok anymore. This was about humanity's place in the galactic community. Humans have faced extinction-level events throughout our evolution, he explained. Our planet tried to kill us countless times with ice ages, volcanic eruptions, diseases, and our own mistakes. We're not stronger or faster than most species, but we've learned to survive against impossible odds. He looked directly at Dovok. That's what makes us dangerous when cornered and valuable as allies. We expect disasters. We plan for them. We've lived through them. Dovok's ridge pattern shifted to blue-green, indicating deep thought. I see now why the Council agreed to admit humans to the Academy, despite objections. You bring something different. He extended his hand in a formal Craxian gesture of respect between equals, something Taehyun had studied but never expected to receive. My family hosts a gathering next term. Would you attend as my honored guest? Taehyun smiled and returned the gesture correctly. I would be pleased to. The next term began with 5 new human students arriving at the academy. Taehyun watched from the arrival platform as they stepped through the massive doors, their eyes wide with the same wonder he had felt. Unlike his lonely arrival, however, these humans found themselves welcomed by a diverse group of students eager to meet them. "What happened to change things so quickly?" asked Jiwoo, one of the new arrivals, as Taehyun showed them around. "They finally learned why humans are not to be messed with," Taehyun smiled. "Not because we're violent, but because we're survivors." In the dining hall later that day, the new humans experienced none of the isolation Taehyun had faced. Instead, students from various species invited them to their tables, curious about Earth and human abilities. Nari sat beside Taehyun, her silver skin glowing with contentment. "You've changed things here," she said. "Not just for yourself, but for all humans who will come after you. And for other species too," Taehyun noted, watching as Tolo explained photosynthesis to a fascinated human student. "The academy feels different now. More cooperative." As they ate, Dovok entered the dining hall with his group of Craxian friends. The room grew momentarily quiet as he walked directly toward Taehyun's table. Some students tensed, expecting trouble. Instead, Dovok performed a formal Craxian greeting bow. "Park, may we join you? My friends would like to learn more about human crisis management. We believe there may be techniques valuable to Craxian emergency protocols." Taehyun nodded and made space at the table. "Of course. And perhaps you could tell us about Craxian architectural engineering. We have much to learn from each other." As the mixed group began sharing knowledge, the academy director watched from across the hall, their spotted skin glowing with approval. "Remarkable," the director murmured to a colleague. "In one term, the human has done what we've tried to accomplish for decades: genuine cross-species cooperation." "Should we be concerned?" the colleague asked. "If humans can influence others so easily." "No," the director replied thoughtfully. "I believe we should be grateful. The galaxy has gained not just another intelligence, but a species that bridges worlds rather than conquers them." Outside the viewports of the academy, stars shone brightly against the darkness of space, a visual reminder of how vast the universe was, and how much stronger they all were together than apart.